You know what I mean?
I mean, like, the building deserves it.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah, what's up?
This is like, please do keep this like a you and me conversation.
Yeah.
Here, let's come over here. I'm not planning to do anything with this. I'm just reviewing legislation, and because you know my brain works a certain way, I always go all the way back to the main thing, and then I like to drive on up, right, to make sure nothing is lost or something isn't covered. Or in doing so, I looked through the Constitution to look over the power of the judiciary or whatever, just to make sure that it's covering all the, you know, all the pieces that need to be covered. You know, responsibilities for magistrate. And then where in the Constitution does it say the DOJ should be looking over state grounds?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Because the derivation that I'm seeing, that it actually says more that it should be all three controlled state grounds and must work together.
Should be the legislative authorities, right? I think where it comes from, and it doesn't come from the Constitution, right? It's the same thing with the power of the Department of Justice currently over the Department of Corrections.
Hold just real quick, just to point this out, is you're right with the legislative authorities, but I'm going to point out some things, and I want you to cook on this a little bit, and I want to be very clear. I'm not planning to do anything, but this is more of a, you know, what is written exercise. It says the DOJ shall have a law enforcement agency responsible for overseeing other law enforcement offices, and a lot of that got clarified with the document that we're cooking on. But it also says they're also responsible for preserving the integrity and safety of the state, etc., right? But if you notice, like, further on, and then obviously you've got LSPD for Los Santos County, you got San Andreas, right? Or Blaine County, right? But then it says further down, it says any area undesignated to a specific jurisdiction will be designed de facto to the property of the state of San Andreas. This is after it's describing, you know, what is the state of San Andreas.
Yeah.
And it says, and all municipalities will have equal law enforcement powers on said territory.
I wonder if somebody's at least interpreted that as to mean that the DOJ itself or all the legislative authorities is some form of municipalities, even though they're not, right? Only Blaine County and Los Santos County are municipalities. I think there's been an inherent, like, misunderstanding with some of this, because I think, like, when the Marshall and Department of Corrections legislation was written out, that swallowed up or claimed an awful lot of authority and jurisdiction.
Oh my God, he's saying what I just said.
Department of Corrections, right? Not Department, it's for the Department of Justice, which is kind of interesting because there's nothing in the Constitution which actually authorizes that.
Exactly. But the DOC should actually, based on my reading of this, should be at minimum a shared operation with the LSPD and the BCSO, and in conjunction with the marshals.
I mean, all law enforcement agencies need the Department of Corrections in order to function, right?
Yes.
Like, in the Department of Justice itself, because we're the ones who sentence people to prison, have some form of duty of care for the people in there. But I don't think that gives us inherent authorization or, like, jurisdiction over the Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
The only thing in legislation at all is that Marshall and Department of Corrections legislation. But again, I don't think that's like constitutionally derived.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Because the thing is, and this is a huge contention point, and I know some of those jugs of Kool-Aid that existed from day one, there's still remnants of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because the DOJ, the marshals are an oversight, right? And is there a need for grander activities? 100%. But, you know, at the end of the day, the DOJ is a legislative authority over all legal and judicial matters.
I mean, honestly, I am inherently scared by any overreach beyond a position of impartiality from the DOJ, because
I am as well.
I don't want any judges, justices included, to take a hard line on any like political instance or grasps of power, because it's not what we're there for.
And that's kind of the scary thing, right? Because it kind of, you know, you can disjoint it, but at the end of the day, if they're still making directives to the marshals, directives to the DOC, then they will always be inherently conflicted, right? Conflicted politically. Their positions, their opinions, everything is polluted.
If you look at that new the new martial legislation, right, the new version of it, it specifically states in there that they retain the power and they should, at first point of call, like first option, be deputizing employees of the Department of Justice. Well, who was that? That's either the clerks or the judiciary, because lawyers are kind of like independent, you know, contractors who work for themselves. So the only employees are the clerks and the judges. You should never, ever be fucking deputizing a judge.
Yeah, that's kind of where I have pointed that out, right? You're creating a very cooked system, right? I wonder where the problem is that, and I spoke to Arcadia about it, is that these sitting justices right now are just as absent as the previous batch, and so it forces everyone to try to assume why they're doing these things. It's hard to get their logic, especially when some justices are not in agreement with what is being pushed forward. Right? Now, I will say that if they're getting directives from a higher power, it would be good to know that, right? Because I don't think anyone's looking to die on a hill if the governor, for example, or the state officials are pushing in a direction, but not knowing when that is and when it isn't. Like, you know, it's operating from look, half that Marshall document is being rejigged because it has no understanding of what is happening in the city.
As far as I know, like literally, as far as I know, everything that they're pushing legislatively is purely coming from the justices. Like the judges aren't being conferred on it, so it's just the justices.
Okay. I think this needs more cooking. I'm solely because I know the DOC is very unhappy. You know what's a little strange? This is you and I only.
Yeah.
Scotty, I got calls from the DOC saying they needed advice because they don't want the DOC operating under the DOJ, let alone under the marshals. And they went and contested the legislation. The first one.
Okay. Well, what's currently actually still the legal
But
law?
Here's the problem. They contested it, and then the justices put the updated version. Now, let me ask you something, Grayson. Is if they had audited a piece of legislation and the highest legal bodies collectively decided to push an update, how do you trust them anymore?
It's not just all right. That's bad. That's bad.
It is.
But the issue is, because of what this legislation itself encompasses, it encompasses granting powers to that body that's denying the audit.
Exactly.
Right? It's inherently a conflict of interest. That's
it's
grim.
so
I don't like that
bad.
at all.
In that one action right there has me in such like a bad headspace, because it to me is like, I don't think they recognize what, I don't know. It's fucking scary. it's scary in the sense that there's it's a high level of incompetence and disregard, right? Because there's no reason not to take it, make an alteration, and then go from there, right?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If someone's willing to audit it and talk you through this, if you're already planning a rewrite, why not take all that feedback? Right?
Precisely.
Why not get it?
What's
use
the
it for
hurry?
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't care. Like, I mean, it's not like we haven't, like, my office hasn't dealt with it. You have to, you know, you have to, I don't know. I'm going to be bringing, it's a slap in the face for everyone in the city, quite frankly, right? It's very public corruption, if I'm going to be honest. But the scary thing is, I don't think there's an understanding, given the action that was taken, that it is corruption. That's my issue. It makes it a little worse if you've seen V3 of the document. They want all audits to only transpire if a judge is directly given, like, handed, like, here's my audit. Like, and I'm just like, brother, like, then show up more, with all due respect. And if you don't have time, what are you doing here?
At the same time, don't forget that in the Judicial Powers Codified, they've changed the language to specifically state that they are oversight over the whole judiciary. Like, it's kind of like a given, but they're claiming authority over the judiciary in the retake of Judicial Powers Codified in a way that was never before codified. And then also stating that a judge needs to be appointed. It's the same thing, right? It's the same issue. They are self-conflicting themselves while, you know, claiming power.
Yeah, it's very cooked. But like I said, it's hard not to they're opening up roads of critique by not being present. Like, thankfully, Arcadia's been around, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, how do you, it's that same old, like, how do you where are they? Where are these conversations? Who are these people to say anything? Right?
Yeah.
I
mean,
to me, they seem like
most days too.
Well, Falconer is new, right? I'm not going to hold him against it because he probably wasn't privy to a lot of these conversations. But, anyways, we should probably get to the meeting. I appreciate your time.
Anytime.
And hey, let's see what you were talking about now.
Yeah.